friends. Welcome to my channel. My name is Stephanie Hebel and I am so excited to share my love of sewing with all of you. My journey with sewing started in 2019 when I wanted to create a set of curtains for the room that I'm in. Well, 5 years later, I'm still sewing, and I have sewn and I continue to sew. I sew dolls and children's dresses. I do alterations for people in my community, such as snowmobile gear, bridesmaids dresses, repairs to pants, suit jackets. I don't think there's any sewing project that I have ever turned away. I greatly love learning new skills and connecting with people. I'm sure that there is something here on my channel that will resonate with many sewists from the novice to the pro. I will be doing pattern reviews and showing you a behind the scenes look at the projects that I'm working on. I believe that sewing is more than just a hobby. It's a way to express yourself and create pieces that are uniquely yours. I'm here to help you build your skills and unleash your creativity and maybe even inspire you to tackle that project that you've been dreaming about. I would like to share with you now some of the very projects that have inspired me. So here on the screen is the first sewing project that I started on. It is not the very first one that I finished. The very first one that I finished was actually this pillow. So at the time I was just hand sewing, and this pillow, it had been a men's shirt that buttoned down the front. And so I reused that fabric and was able to make a pillow that opened in the back. And I did a patchwork design to create the pillow front. And then using those same fabrics, many of them I had bought them at a thrift store. And that is how I created these 3 sets of curtains that you see on the screen. So I had started the curtains by hand sewing them, but then a friend lent me a sewing machine, and I was able to complete those. So here's another view. So there's duck panels that are incorporated in here and men's shirts. The next project that I did was a quilt kit. So I bought the quilt kit. I believe it was from Connected Threads, was the name of the company. This is a picture of my hallway that you see on the screen. It's a perfect place for displaying quilts. And I think the pattern was named Birdhouse Lane. And on the back of the quilt, I repurposed a room darkening curtain that is nice and shiny and very smooth, like the material that you would use for a sleeping bag. And so that is the back side of that that quilt. So I was already upcycling right from the start. Then this wall hanging was a huge amount of skills that I needed to acquire to do this project. There's English paper piecing in this project. There's applique, many skills that I taught myself. Then I went on to doing a log cabin quilt for one of my sons. And the Birdhouse Lane quilt was for one of my daughters. And then this quilt here, my oldest daughter designed this. And to me, this screams Vertigo. If you've ever watched the Alfred Hitchcock movie, So this is it laid out before sewn up. Here's one of the rows. Um, See if you can discern where a quilt block begins and ends. Um, so that was very interesting. And there's a picture of the completed quilt. I had a lot of fun doing that, very challenging. Um, Talk about getting right into it with the piecing of learning how to, I forget what the term would be, like half finished seams, or maybe it would be called Y seams, because that's how I was able to do that. Um, then I love Kim Diehl, I think is how you pronounce her last name. And I love her color scheme. So I took one of her patterns, it might have been called checkerboard, and I did this. The backing of this quilt, it was velvet. So I hand quilted that, and only at the end did I ever go and get a thimble. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I used, I think it's number 9 embroidery thread, um, pearl, pearl thread maybe. Okay. So anyways, so there's that. Then I found on my property um, a antique, I think it's 1954, 1957 Singer sewing machines. So then I got more into um, sewing. This was a table runner. Um, and that it's called Dutchman's Puzzle. Um, so on this paper that you see, I sketched out what my color scape was going to be, and then went ahead and did my piecing of my materials. So triangles are quite challenging. Um, and this one, I think it's called Barbara Frecci's Star. I don't know how to pronounce that correctly. Um, and so I made 2, maybe 3 of these types of table runners. I believe one of my friends bought this from me. And this was around the time that I was figuring out my dog is nudging me. That's why the camera's shaking. Um, that's around the time that I was learning the price point for quilting, and what the limited market, at least in my area, that there is for hand sewn items such as quilts and table toppers. And here's a picture of the finished one. This one I have hanging in my kitchen to the right of the window that you see here. Um, and then this project, I very much loved doing it. Some friends of mine, they unfortunately lost a family member to COVID. And um, this family, they are Native American. And so I did a deep dive into Native American culture and their nation, Seneca Nation, and their Seneca Nation flag. Um, so just really, yeah, researching the, I don't want to discredit, my word would be mythology, but their words might be belief system. Um, so yeah, what is their culture? What is the colors that spoke to me? And so this was one of the quilts that I made. I did 4 quilts. One was blue, as you can see. Another one was purple. On the purple one, I did the Seneca, well, it's actually the Iroquois Confederation flag. So there is the, I think it's called the Tree of Knowledge, maybe the Tree of, oh no, Tree of Peace, that Harusani um, uh, passed down to them. So I did all of that free motion quilting. Um, this is a silhouette of an eagle that I put the paper on top of the quilt and then free motion quilted it. I do not recommend doing this because then I had to pick up pick out all of the pieces of the paper. But it was a joy to do it for my friends. And this is what the purple quilt looked like afterwards. So it's a um, very realistic interpretation of the Iroquois Confederacy flag. And if I am remembering how I did this, I think on each of those purple figures, because each purple band, there's a total of 5 purple bands. Those are to represent the backs of women. So they would be like women dancers with blankets on their backs. So the way I see it is there's 5 women um, figures, and so each on the back of each of them is an element of the Confederacy flag, and along their back from the top to the bottom, I think I have on this one it looks like there's diamonds, and on other ones there was arrows, because I wanted to intentionally free motion quilt elements of their culture. So whether it was arrows or eagles, trees was on one. There was a green one and there was a burgundy mustard one. Oh yes, so here you can see the arrows that I free motion quilted there. I love the friction pens. Those are very helpful. So there you can see another picture of the free motion quilting. And okay, so I like to do dolls. And this was it's called a Sudoku table topper. Um, so the idea is you number each of your fabrics. So that's why you see a pile of fabric, and each one had its own number, 1 through 9. And then I laid it out according to a Sudoku puzzle. Um, and so that kind of guaranteed the randomness. And this is another project. I'm just scrolling through these pictures. So you can see a little bit of the Sudoku table topper over to the left. There'll probably be more pictures of it coming up. This is another doll I made for my oldest granddaughter. This was a Tilda bunny. The bunny will get a ice cream cone in a moment. And she's got a little crown on top. Let's see here. Okay, there she is with her little her ice cream cone, and I've pinned its belly to it there, and it hasn't gotten the cherry yet that goes on top of the cone. There, now it's completed, and it's got the little cherry on top. So that was a fun project. Now at this time, the reason I have this picture in here is because that's when I started my business. I was feeling confident enough in my sewing, and I bought my labels off of a website, a company called Grain Deep. They're in Canada. I found them on Etsy, but they do business with me off of Etsy. That way they don't get charged the heavy fees on Etsy. There's the Sudoku table topper. So what I did here was, I think it's called orange peel um, quilt quilting motif. So I really like that motif of the circles and they overlap each other like a Venn diagram. So that turned out really nice. I haven't sold that yet. It's always another skill to take the photos to make it look appealing to somebody. So if it looks nice to you, let me know if you're interested in that. This was the source of the name of my business. Always stay humble and kind. So that I was like, oh, that very much applies to me. And so that's where I came up with Humbly and Kindly Made. These I got at the Dollar Tree to help me with free motion quilting. It looks like I was free motion quilting the Native American quilts, because you can see it on the chair there. So then I got into making Topsy Turvy dolls. And so this is a picture of the book. And here's the beginnings of a doll that I made for a girl that I'm friends with the family. And so there's the beginnings of hair. And there's the back side of one of the heads. And this is all with quilting fabric and yarn. And there's a close-up of one head and then the other one. And there's her back. And this is another table runner that I did. I still haven't sold that yet. And you can see the free motion quilting on there. It's all of leaves, aspen leaves, maple leaves, oak leaves. I hand drew that all out, and it's reversible. So there's two sides to that table topper or table runner. That's the other side of it. You can see that pretty aspen leaf there. Then I made my mother-in-law a table runner. It's a Diehl pattern, and I actually messed it up the first time that I did it. So I said, well, I'll have another go at it and do the other side. So this, I think, is the correct layout, I want to say. And this was the incorrect layout, maybe. Anyway, she was very pleased with it. I did a scrolling design for the free motion quilting, and that's it with the binding on it. So that's one side of it. You can see the like snowballs with the bars. And then this way, it looks like dumbbells, I guess you could say, dumbbells and sticks with balls. I don't know. I actually forget which which is the correct one, but I loved doing it. I loved those colors, and she loved those colors. My mother-in-law loved those colors too. So this is a picture of it on her butcher block. She is an artist, now retired, but her house is very Pennsylvania Dutch decorated. So that's it fit right in with her motif. So that's her butcher block. And there's the reverse side of that table runner. And there it is in her formal dining room with decorations on top. So I just love sewing. I love being creative. This was all hand stitched, felt. It was felt, and I hand stitched it all. My granddaughter plays with this right now. I haven't sold this either. Um, and there's Mr. and Mrs. Gnome and their little house. And then I was making lots of gnomes. I've sold a number of those. I think I'm down to less than 10 of those. I don't know if I'll continue to make them or not. Let me know if what your thoughts are. Some of these I appliqued leaves and mushrooms and holly berries onto. And other ones I left plain, but they're just perfect for little hands to hold on to. Then I got into mitten making and big time upcycling. So I don't know about you, but in my area, wool coats are only seasonally available. So it was last year, 2023, that I stocked up on wool. It's really hard to find wool sweaters nowadays. Um, so when I found them, I bought them. But I also bought lots of wool coats, and I bought polyester pullovers, and I loved deconstructing and getting out my seam ripper and deconstructing. I saved all the zippers, all the linings, all the cuffs. Um, and then would send it through the washer and get it all felted. So that's what you see here is once it's all washed, saved all the buttons. I've got bags and bags of buttons. You can see next to the buttons and the zipper is material that I cut so that I can use that for cuffs, because mitten cuffs are necessary. Um, and so I've made so many pairs of mittens. You can see some of them here on this screen. This is one of my banner images that I've used on Etsy or on my Facebook page. You can see a squirrel felt tree house that I've made here up on the top right. I've made baby quilts. That's on the bottom right. Buffalo Bill's water bottle bags. What else have I made? Oh, so this picture is showing you that all the wool that I deconstruct, it goes into the washing machine to get felted. So in order to felt wool, you just need to wash it with hot water in the washing machine with some detergent. And I would wash these materials anyways because they came from the thrift store, but it's the hot water and the agitation that causes it to felt, and then putting it in the dryer. And so depending if it was like a sweater that was loosely knit, then I would put it through several more times to get it to the compactness that I would want it to be. And I've got this picture here because I was also last year posting more on Facebook and seeing which channel I was reaching more people. And so yes, washing wool does make a mess, but I was even saving even this material to stuff into dolls. And so here is a picture of a mitten that I originally had knit this material as a cowl, C-O-W-L, for my oldest daughter, and she had outgrown it. And so before felting it, I asked her, "Are you done with it?" And she said yes. And so the texture of this, absolutely loved the texture. It was I knit it with moss seed stitch, I think is what it's called. Anyways, it was wonderful texture. I called it dragon mittens because it just reminded me of the scaliness of dragons. And so I felted it, but then I used a sweater cuff to get the cuff, and those sold even before I finished making them. This is how I send all of my items. I wrap them in either this teal turquoise colored tissue paper or this burnt orange color. I include thank you notes handwritten to the buyer or the gift recipient. And that's my thank you bags, one of the types I have. And I hand tie everything with raffia ribbon. Here's another pair of mittens I made last winter. I've got to stock back up on my bottle bags and then get into mitten making mode. And it's fun. It really is fun to upcycle things. Here's a pair of these are men's mittens, and the reason I know they're men's is because the men's mittens that I make, they don't have cuffs. I've asked a number of men in my area, excuse me, and they didn't think that cuffs were important to them with their coats and such. And these were Pendleton. This was a Pendleton blanket, and I washed it 7 some odd times, not because it was dirty, but because I wanted that weave of the blanket to become really compact. And then I put in a fleece lining. So very seldom do I not put in a fleece lining. So almost all of my mittens I can think of always have 2 layers, the wool or polyester fleece, because some people, they're allergic to wool. And then, yeah, those two yeah, the lining and then the outside shell. Here's another pair of men's mittens. Um, so it reminds me of Deadpool. So the charcoalish black, it wasn't a straight black, and the red. I like to save the labels too of the coats that I've upcycled. I know one of them was from the Ukraine. This was fleece, pretty fleece. I think it was a vest. So I had cardinals on it. And there's a pair, I think I was able to make two pairs of the dragon, I call it dragon mittens. So this is a pile of fleece here, and the bottom left fleece, my youngest daughter claimed for a pair of mittens she wanted me to make her. And so I cut out all my mitten pieces. Um, and I think you'll see in the upcoming pictures mittens I made for her. This was a wool rich sweater that my mother-in-law asked me to make her a pair of mittens from. She wanted the mittens to be from the sleeves. And the I don't know if I can zoom in. Oh, I can. Okay. So, sorry. You can see here that the knit stitches of the sweater itself, it's not tight. Okay, and that is the case for the sleeve as well as the body of the sweater. So I used, I think it's number 9 pearl thread. Yeah, and you can see it over here it's on the left screen. What would be the sweater's right sleeve? This had like a hole in it. So I used thread to reinforce all of this, and I'll zoom back out. Okay, and go to the next picture. And I reinforced it all. Is it going to let me go to the next picture now that I did that? Okay, now I can go to, okay, so here's my youngest daughter's mittens. So I added on a cuff. I don't do cuffs for men's, but I do cuffs for everybody else's sizes. So she's very happy with those. Oops. Okay. Okay, so here you can see how the back of the hand piece of the mittens, what it looked like before I did the reinforced stitching. That's another sweater, an LL Bean wool sweater that I made into mittens. Somebody gave me the sweater so that I would make the mittens, and I love that. I absolutely love it because it's a project that will already be sold. So it's great. And I was able to make, I think, 2 sets of women's mittens from that sweater, plus have extra material. But I was able to get the configuration that the customer wanted. Okay, so back to my mother-in-law's mittens. Okay, that's the customer's LL Bean sweater. So I used the very top of the sleeve as well as the bottom of the sleeve. Yep, and that's how I did that. So I think it was called like Northern Lights. It was like vintage LL Bean sweater, and I felted it and got it nice and compact, and made mittens from that. And here's the pieces from my mother-in-law's mittens, and this is it completed. I took the buttons from the sweater and put them on the cuffs, and then she and I discussed that I would use wool from a coat for the palms, since the palms would get more friction and more use. That would be better for the construction of the mitten, that the palms would be from coat wool and the knit wool would stay on the back of the hand. And that's what it looks like. So if we zoom in here, try to gently zoom in, you can see, um, oh, okay, whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, you can see my hand stitching, reinforcing the green, filling in the holes. Um, and it was imperceptible to her. I think she didn't even remember that there was holes. She just really liked the color scheme. So she was thrilled. Um, but over the past year, when I go to book groups or whatever, I bring that sweater with me, the remnants of it, and I've been reinforcing all of it. Somebody will like it. It's a nice quiet craft for me. There's a zoomed in picture. Um, yeah, I think it came out really well. And there's another picture. Um, yeah, so that's what it looked like before I did all the hand stitching. So there's that to that. Um, yeah. Yeah, I'm very thankful that I have the ability to be multifaceted in my skill set. And there's another picture. Okay, this was an order of 13 women's and children's mittens that a dear friend placed an order with me. Um, and I had found at a thrift shop when I was visiting with my mother-in-law, I found Brook linen bedding. I didn't tell her. She had she had just bought Brook linen bed sheets for herself and for us, like for when we stayed at her house in Pennsylvania. And I found these Brook linen fleece sheets at the thrift store, and it was not, I don't think it was a fitted sheet, it was a flat sheet. And I was like, oh my gosh, this would be perfect lining for mittens. um and so that's why on this note here, that you see at the bottom, all have Brook linen lining. Because I was upcycling. And so there's the stack of all the mittens as I was making them. These bottom two pairs are Angora. They were Angora wool, from sweaters. And oh my goodness, women that I was telling about there, they were elbowing each other for who was going to get the last pair of Angora mittens. So that was really fun. And the back, the pair that you see in the back row, on the top, that are purple, they have a lot of texture. A woman in the community had knitted a sweater, and it was at a thrift shop, and she had her own embroidered label. And so I was able to retain that information, and pass it on to the person who bought these, that Mrs. So and so had knit the sweater that was made into these mittens. So I really like that history part of upcycling. Um, and at that time, I just had gotten a silhouette fabric cutting machine, which was so helpful when I was making these mittens. Not for the thick material, but it was great for the coat material and the fleece, that Brooklyn and fleece. Um, Here was a project. A friend had kept her childhood coat, and she wanted her daughter, her newborn, under 2 years old daughter, to wear it. You can see here the tag says 12 months. So, but this material, whatever it was, pleather, it would flake terribly, and white specks would get all over the baby's face and neck and hands. And so she asked me to replace it, and the ties that was on here would flake. And you can see the flaking there. This is a buttonhole here. And so that was going to be another facet to this project was to recreate a buttonhole. Oh, there's the older lady's sewn, well, knit sweater mittens that I remade. I think her name was Norma or Elma. Let's see here. Oh, see right here. I put it on the label. Palms, Forstman 100% pure wool, back of hand. So that's the black that you just see a little bit of um, the the palm. Oh, and then back of hand knit by Canton, New York, resident Alma Gardner, 100% wool. So I retained that information. So that way the buyer knows all of the materials that they're receiving. Um, and this was the most tedious part of the child's project, was remaking those little ties for her coat. But I enjoyed it. I used the felt that I was using to line the mittens. I used that for the inside of her coat. That's our coat rack in our front hall. So yes, here I'm showing that this is all replaced with clean new felt. I guess you could, I think it's felt, and not fleece, because it didn't have a nap to it. Okay, then I got into snowmobile gear. That's hard for me to say. My tongue gets all twisted. So a young man, just by word of mouth, needed somebody to repair zippers, and I was more than happy to do that. Then I learned about the type of zippers is important. There's a type of zipper, the name is escaping me right now. I'll put it in the description box, of the very particular type of zipper that you need to use, that it won't, the teeth won't break when it's cold. I think it begins with a V. That when it's cold or icy or the moisture. So that was my introduction to doing that sort of work. I love the challenge, so that I plowed through that. This was a antique or vintage Hudson Bay coat that had a fox fur lining that I replaced, and then I added a gusset to the underarm. So there I'm replacing the fox fur lining on the hood. And I'm showing that I'm removing or hand stitching maybe the last bit of it. This is the gusset. So I spoke with the customer, and she was okay with me adding black for that lining, because it was a 2-layer, and you can see the original label is there, Hudson Bay Company coat. I think she said she purchased it like in the 1970s maybe. So she was okay with a black gusset for that inner liner, and then she provided me with red wool for the outer layer. Oh, and I also replaced this cuff, the grayish material that you see me holding here on the cuff. I replaced that for her, because she was getting a new hood, so why not get a new cuff? That's the dragon mittens. That's what the cowl looked like once it was all felted. And there's another pair of mittens. I called those the Scandinavian mittens. Those are the dragon ones. That's the alpaca mittens. Here's an overview of all sorts of different projects. One I haven't mentioned is this sweater. Right below my logo, you can see a hand knitted sweater, which I'm in the mood to make another one of those. My intention is to make it for my granddaughter. So that's an overview of a bunch of my projects. This is one of my newest endeavors, is making show-off water bottle bags. This afternoon I just received a custom order to make another show-off water bottle bag. So this is a pattern from Lynn's Designs, and I changed the pattern to be able to have a window. And there's the pouch that I've constructed. That's the bottom of this custom made bag, and a picture of it before I sent it to the customer. Here's a picture of the customer. She put her water bottle in it, and here's her review. And she says, I love how she helped with the process from start to finish. So that went out to California. And within the past couple weeks, I've sent a water bottle bag to Australia, which is really cool. And I've sent knit dolls to Ireland and to India. That was, yeah, it was really exciting and really fun. So if any of these things at all interest you, please comment below. I would love for you to connect with me on Facebook at Humbly and Kindly Made. Feel free to message me there as well. Some people have done that when they've needed help with some of my sewing tutorials. Feel free to email me. My email is in the description box. I do plan on doing a tutorial on a little lizard dress. I'm sorry, skirt, a little lizard skirt. I believe I've done all the video recording that I want to do for it. So I have to review my footage that I've recorded and see if I have everything there that I want. And I'll share that with you probably next week. So thank you again for sticking with me and stopping by and getting to know me.